Hello, here's Paul Brody. Welcome to my exhibit, Voices of Help, at the Youth Museum here in Berlin, Germany. This three-room exhibit explores my neighborhood from the perspective of community and social workers. What does the idea of help tell about a culture? Let's go in and find out. I believe that the humanity of a culture is revealed through how it treats its marginalized population. For years, I've been curious about the large number of community and social workplaces right in my neighborhood. Who are the people and what are their tools of help? I interviewed 10 social workers and community workers, and I composed music using their voice melody as inspiration. This is a Studs Terkel-like radio installation documentary with music. The beginnings of the social workers' ideas about help, their formative years, it started very early with the schools and their families. Although they're trained professionally, how they help is really based on what happened to them when they were younger. So the first room here is dedicated to why they help and what inspired them into their young lives. In Berlin, it's a cultural oddity that there's an infinite number of variations on doorknobs. So I use the doorknob with the social worker's hands as kind of a leitmotif to reflect that. Something very informal about beginnings and random beginnings. Also, the chairs are scattered, the lights fade in and out in this room to create a kind of lineal feeling. The second room is dedicated to the stories. I asked each social worker and community worker, tell me a story that explains to me the tools of your help. Some of these tools involve knowing basic laws and human rights. Other involve more therapeutic situation. An intercultural place, for example, the social worker knows that from different cultures, it's impolite, for example, to say no. So if you realize that, that can avoid complications when working with people from other countries. A melody is a story is a melody. And so when I compose music, each voice got an instrument that accompanied, that underlined the voice melody. And to reflect this work, I put fragments from the stories on the walls, and hopefully the spectators are inspired to take the fragments of the stories and connect them together and create their own narratives. Alice Solomon started one of the first social work schools, and the development of social work as a profession is part of the women's movement, and it's also part of the idea of social work as a professional entity. And this is reflected in this archive picture from the Solomon School. Let's go to the third room. The third room is, I wanted more light, more motion in the room to reflect the idea of volunteer help. Volunteer help often expands the system, expands the idea of help, because volunteers take what's even more important, what speaks to them personally. For example, a young woman founded a women's group helping Arabic women to learn to ride bicycles. There's a huge population, from Syria and other Arabic countries, and they don't ride bicycles in Syria. It's not part of their culture. It's part of European culture. So this dialogue that is created through this simple activity is huge, and there's a lot of echoes from this simple action. The question, speaking of dialogue, the idea of help, it's often that the relationship between the helper and helpee is not that simple. So to reflect this, I really wanted to write questions on the walls. I love questions. Asking, do they want to accept our culture? Do we want to adopt their culture? To simply bring out this aspect that help is not always simple, the relationships are not always easy. The idea of a sewing machine. The sewing machine is the center of the third room because sewing for me reflects a lot about immigrant culture. Sewing reflects a person coming from one continent to the next and finding a piece of cloth in their adopted home to mend their clothes. Sewing reflects status, it reflects religious orientation. It also reflects, terrible things, sweatshops and even slave labor, but at the same time, new styles forming from cultures coming together, and these styles end up being shown in Paris fashion shows. I'd like to finish with a little story about how this, another story about how this exhibit was inspired. My daughter was volunteering at a soup kitchen, and I thought, if she volunteers, I should volunteer too. I was volunteering in a refugee home, and I saw a young woman about as old as my mother when she was put on the train from Nazi Vienna to go to England. And I thought, wow, if it weren't for the people helping my mother escape Vienna and helping her in England, I wouldn't be here in Berlin doing an exhibit about the concepts of help. So I want to encourage us to, through this exhibit, also to cultivate this, what we have here in Europe, this social system, and hopefully that stays. I'd also like to develop this exhibit into 3 other perspectives, maybe go to 3 other countries and collect stories from social workers in other countries to give a cultural comparison, expand this exhibit. Thanks for visiting.
It's very cool. I like the whole installation, At first I thought, what are these balls? And then I saw that they were resembling the notes of the music, and which I think is very clever. And I love the sewing machine and the old cover, because I love sewing machines, and I have a sewing workshop in my project.
Ja, die Ausstellung hat mir sehr, sehr gut gefallen. Ich bin sehr berührt, wie diese Gedanken, die Paul Brody hatte, hier mit Hilfe vieler anderer aus dem Kiez umgesetzt wurde. Eine faszinierende und eine anregende Ausstellung.
The idea of sewing brings the people together, and I was really moved for this part of the exhibition.
One thing that I loved most, I think, is the way it's translated into music. How really there's a voice, each voice has their own sound, musical sound too, which added an extra level, an emotional level to.
Mir gefiel als jemand, der sich für Technikgeschichte auch interessiert, die Sache mit der Nähmaschine so gut. Denn das ist eine Maschine. Die Musik ist aber nicht Technomusik, sondern ein Dialog zwischen der Sprache und der Maschine. Und der Mensch geht aber da nicht verloren. Das fand ich, was ich besonders mitnahm hier.
Maybe Paul's story at the end too, that there was a personal aspect which maybe even occurred to him at the end of making the exhibit, that actually somebody helped his mom to flee from Nazi Germany, and maybe he wouldn't be here if somebody hadn't helped his mom. And I think it's something that is really important to remember right now in these times, that helping is so important. And there was always somebody who helped us, or our mom, or our dad. You have to help each other.
We read so little about the helpers. I mean, mainly because news is only bad news, and this is sort of good news. This is, and to hear so many different voices and really touching stories. I mean, some of them you were almost crying.
It was wonderful. It was unsentimental, but fascinating to hear each story. Each person came across as a distinctive individual with a distinctive life history. Social work has a great tradition in the United States, and suddenly I was listening to it live here. Wonderful experience.
It would never occur to me to put music to voices and to sort of play the emotions of the people. So the depth, it almost was like adding another dimension to what was being said.
Bei Musik geht es eben nicht nur um Worte, sondern um Äußerungen in einer Sprache, die jenseits von Worten ist. Und das war so besonders erfolgreich dargestellt. Das Projekt scheint mir auch besonders komplex und sehr gut organisiert zu sein.
Ich bin in meinem Zivilberuf quasi den Forscher bei der Fraunhofer Gesellschaft und bin beschäftigt mit Maschinensehen und maschineller Intelligenz und somit auch mit der Thematik Mensch-Maschine-Schnittstelle. Wie kann ein Mensch mit Objekten kommunizieren?
I thought it was highly original, the mixture of music and language, and I hope that this can actually be an example for other people to combine the two in this way. Of course, Paul Brody did this with extraordinary sensitivity since he found the music to capture the nuances of people's voices as well as their stories.
Wir haben uns kennengelernt, weil er Feuer gelegt hat in der Schule und hatte sich bei mir versteckt unterm Schreibtisch und alle haben ihn gesucht. Und er saß unterm Schreibtisch und alle sind bei mir ins Büro und haben gefragt, hast du den gesehen? Und ich habe gesagt, nein. Und das war das erste Mal, dass er bei mir sozusagen Schutz gesucht hat.
Wir gehen zu den Treffpunkten von Jugendlichen hin, wo sie sich aufhalten. An öffentlichen Plätzen, vor Shisha-Bars, vor Internetcafés. Das meiste, was die Jugendlichen machen wollen, ist natürlich entweder Go-Kart fahren. Jetzt nehmen wir uns Strecken, die sehr lange sind. Das heißt, wo wir mit ihnen ins Gespräch kommen.
Ich arbeite ja jetzt mit alten Menschen. Ich bin selber alt. Es gibt so viele alte Menschen, die alleine zu Hause sitzen. Diese Einsamkeit der alten Menschen ist irgendwie aussichtslos.
Ich muss meine Klienten auf eine gewisse Art auch lieben können. Und wenn das bei mir nicht einspringt, dann kann ich eigentlich mit den Menschen nicht arbeiten. Ich kann nicht jedem helfen.
Die verletzen sich selbst und wissen ja nicht warum. Das hat einen Sinn, aber sie wissen nicht, wo es herkommt. Und deswegen können die auch nicht zu einer Beratungsstelle, gehen die nicht zu einer Beratungsstelle für sexuellen Missbrauch.
Er hat den Berufseinstieg verpasst. Er hat zum Beispiel nachts Strom abgeklemmt, aus dem Treppenhaus eine Leitung gelegt. Und damit es keiner sieht, hat er das immer nachts gemacht und dann auch am PC gearbeitet, seine Bude geheizt, gekocht und so weiter. Und morgens, wenn die Leute zur Arbeit gingen, hat er das Kabel weggenommen, damit es keiner merkt. Ja.
Die Bildkarten der Gefühlsmonster, die habe ich. Dann habe ich dieses schöne Bilderbuch Ein Dino zeigt Gefühle. So, und dann kann man diese Karten beispielsweise mal ordnen lassen. Beispielsweise an dem Gefühl verliebt sein. Für manche die strahlen dabei und andere wieder finden es nur lustig und andere wieder sind völlig entsetzt darüber, dass es so ein Gefühl gibt.